Good morning.
Good
Kindness
morning,
and
Steph.
goodness and justice and handsomeness all rolled into one
Boy.
big. Hi, good morning, Glenn Kirschner.
How are you?
Well, I'm okay. It's like a poodle on linoleum. And so when the Supreme Court decision came down about the Electoral College, I'm like, is this good or bad? Is it good or bad? So that appears to be good. It's just saying the electors have to follow the popular vote. Elena Kagan wrote it. So I'm like, okay, it must be good.
But it's good for either party, however.
Right. People that would like a fair election. Right, Glenn?
Yes, following the rules is good. I think we can go out on a limb.
Yeah. And all 9 went out on a limb to say that.
Yes, it was 9-0 on that. Glenn, what do you have? Because we're going to get the tax case today, aren't we? The Trump's taxes?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. It may be a split decision. New York gets it, Congress doesn't, but we have to wait and see.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, okay. You obviously were in the same cold sweat. I saw everybody, all our legal lads and ladies, Jill Wine-Banks, everybody read this piece. I was saying, President Bartlett sent it to me. Martin Sheen's like, did you see this? I'm like, yes! I'm getting Glenn Kirschner at 8 o'clock Pacific.
Yeah, I would take President Bartlett or President Bartlett Pear. Anybody.
Yes.
yes, President Bartlett Pear would be good. But yeah, and again, Glenn, there's nothing that we would think is outside the bounds, particularly someone that, as you and I know, likely knows they'll be going to prison. Now, not just losing a second term, but, I am not a person, because I just feel like we're getting this flashback to 2016. It'll all be fine. Hillary's going to win. Everything will be good. And I have that sense now, like, oh, Biden's way ahead. It's all going to be fine. But this piece, written by a former senator, right in Newsweek, it just briefly, for Trump, there are 2 broad pathways to maintaining power. And these are things we talk about, Glenn, that is disturbing. Suppressed voter turnout with purging registration rolls of large numbers of urban voters, suppressed mail-in ballots, obviously re-election apparatus that's training 50,000 poll watchers for the purpose of challenging citizens' rights to vote, and significant efforts to make in-person voting in urban areas as cumbersome as possible, along lines, etc. The second pathway, here you might want to get my apocalyptic music ready, is to subverting the election is even more ominous, but we must be cognizant of it because Trump is already laying the groundwork for how he can lose the popular vote, even lose the key swing states necessary for electoral college victory, but still remain president. There's an extensive list of presidential emergencies powers that might be inappropriately invoked in a national security crisis. Bill Barr, known for his extremist view of the expanse of presidential power, widely believed to be developing a Justice Department opinion arguing the president can exercise emergency powers in certain national security situations, while stating that the courts, being extremely reluctant to intervene in the sphere of national security emergency, would allow the president to proceed unchecked. So here we go, right? He's already laid the groundwork for this. What did he tweet, Glenn? Hang on. He tweeted, rigged 2020 election, millions of mail-in ballots will be printed by foreign countries and other. It'll be the scandal of our times. With this, Trump has begun to lay the groundwork for the step-by-step process by which he holds on to the presidency after he clearly lost the election. Please, dear God, Glenn Kirschner, help us.
Yeah, that was a frightening article, and I'm glad that, Newsweek put it out there, because now we can put mechanisms in place to defeat that plan every step of the way, and it can be defeated. I think the first thing we have to do is impeach Bill Barr.
Thank you.
Plain and simple. I don't care what the Senate does, but here's the thing. I think it's a miscalculation, Steph, to say, well, if the House impeaches Bill Barr, the Senate will never convict him. I don't know that that's exactly right. If it is, it doesn't matter. But I'm not sure that there would be a reluctance to vote guilty on articles of impeachment for Bill Barr, who we could list his crimes. They are legion. The way there was a reluctance in the senators to vote against Donald Trump, because I don't think a vote to convict and remove Bill Barr in the Senate has the same direct implications and consequences of voting to convict and remove Donald Trump. So, yes, that means we have to hope that the Republicans have some minimal law-abidingness in them, and maybe they don't, but it doesn't matter because it still has to be done, because Donald Trump is not smart enough to navigate the criminal scheme set out in the Newsweek article, but Bill Barr is, and that's why it doesn't matter what the result is. We have to undertake an impeachment inquiry investigation and hearing into Bill Barr.
Well, you said it best. You said, right, as you tweeted as well, the House must try to protect America by impeaching Barr, especially because he will corruptly try to keep Trump in office after he loses the election. And you said one concrete step to prevent what can only be called an evil plot to destroy our republic is to impeach Barr. He's the one who will take what's illegal and write a BS memo claiming it's legal, thereby giving Trump the blueprint for autocracy, which he started, of course, before he had the job with the Mueller report, right? And so
and we are forever asking ourselves, can the president do that? Is that legal? Is that constitutional? The answer is it doesn't really matter until we get into court, because Bill Barr will say whatever the president is trying to do to retain power is super legal. Yeah. He'll write a memo to that effect because Bill Barr, you have to give him points for consistency. He believes, a la Richard Nixon, that if the president does it, up to and including shooting people on Fifth Avenue, it's legal. He sent his DOJ lawyers into court in the Second Federal Circuit Court of Appeals, and the judge said, you can't be telling us, Mr. DOJ lawyer, that if the president shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, he couldn't be arrested, indicted, and prosecuted. And the DOJ lawyer said, Your Honor, that is the government's position. So it's all legal in Bill Barr's book.
Glenn, I'm someone that's, when you read this, does the horrible irony not hit you that what he will say is this was an illegitimate election, this is a national emergency crisis. Newsweek goes through all the steps that would get us there. And I'm like, oh, that's what the Obama administration should have done. My hair was on fire then, saying this is clearly an illegitimate election. People like you and Malcolm Nance and Rachel Maddow were out there early going, this is, Maxine Waters said, I'm not going to, this is an illegitimate president. I'm not going to this inauguration. And I was screaming that we needed to stop, that we needed to do this because it actually was an illegitimate national security crisis and an illegitimate election last time. But the difference is they play differently than we do, don't they? And you read this whole piece, Glenn, and you're like, oh, yeah, they do that. I mean, what is it? They quote Fareed Zakaria in here, right? Donald Trump will pay any price, make any deal, bend any rule to assure his own survival and success and to stay out of prison.
Let me be a Supreme Court egghead for a minute, because there are a couple of ways, in addition to impeaching Bill Barr, that we can defeat this plan as articulated so well in the Newsweek article. So the Supreme Court, I don't believe, is completely irredeemable. We have seen some crossover lately, and not just from Chief Justice Roberts, who we know actually, I think, cares about the integrity and the public perception of the Supreme Court. So there is a constitutional doctrine involved in what Newsweek sets out that they say could result in Donald Trump retaining power forever, and it's called forfeiture by wrongdoing. Let me just set it up real quick. I know Travis is on vacation, so he's the fall guy for this hypothetical.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Let's assume I kill somebody, and Travis is the only eyewitness. Travis is a good citizen. He tells the police, he tells the prosecutor.
He would. He's a snitch. He's a total snitch.
He testifies in the grand jury, and now he's getting ready to testify against me at trial. I then make Travis disappear so that he can't testify against me. And I walk into court, Steph, and I say, I have a constitutional right to confront and cross-examine the witness against me. He's not available, therefore you must dismiss the case. The courts, the Supreme Court says you can't do it because it's called forfeiture by wrongdoing. You can't invoke the protection of the Constitution if you are the one who did wrong, such that your rights can now not be enforced. So here's what Donald Trump did. Donald Trump stood on the White House lawn and said, China, I want you to investigate my political opponent, Joe Biden. If then Trump loses massively in both the popular vote and the Electoral College, but Bill Barr says, we think there was massive China interference, so I'm going to start an investigation. The president's going to declare a national emergency, and we're going to waltz into the Supreme Court and try to get them on our side. The institutionalists, ironically, the strict constructionists of the world, the right wing of the court will say, no. We have a constitutional principle of forfeiture by wrongdoing. Trump can't say, China, if you're listening, investigate Biden, and then run to the Supreme Court and say now protect me because China has interfered. I actually have faith that the entire left-wing bloc of SCOTUS will buy that, and many of the right-wing bloc members will buy that.
Yeah. Well, Glenn, I want to get your take on, because, as you move through the sweat of this piece, then you get to, what do we do about this? And they do say in here, what do we do as citizens to prevent this? We must out this scenario, do so loudly and consistently. We have an imperative to build what they're calling a people's firewall. But they talk about Pelosi should ask the judiciary, commerce, armed services, intelligence to hold hearings on steps, what that can be taken to safeguard against this scenario, especially how to confront any invocation of emergency powers by the president. There needs to be an outpouring at all levels of society that this will not be tolerated, from government officials, lawmakers, legal, obviously, people like you, the press. The recent resistance of our military establishment is an encouraging sign and necessary component of the people's firewall. The president has to know there will be overwhelming resistance to any post-election chaos to undermine our constitutional order. He must know that the people's firewall will not yield to lawlessness. That part is essential, isn't it? That we're talking about this now and just saying we need to be prepared for literally anything and everything, don't we?
There should be a literal and figurative people's firewall. I mean, if we sense that they are going down this road, this nefarious road as laid out in the Newsweek article, everybody in America, I don't just mean some people, everybody in America will need to post up in Washington, D.C. and put a literal people's firewall in place, because we can't let them get away with this. And I'm going to go back to Congress's responsibility. I don't understand, Steph. We now see the plan that's in place to squirrel this election. They should be doing what they should have been doing all along, which is issue subpoenas, and if the administration doesn't comply, enforce them with their inherent power of contempt and start locking people up. Because if we don't do that now, Steph, and this Newsweek scenario plays out, how have we served the people?
No, exactly. And I got to say, Glenn, look at the Lincoln Project. They fight differently than we do. Go back to 2000, the Brooks Brothers riots, and how the right wing, they wouldn't concede, and they fought, and then the Supreme Court hands the election to Bush. In 2004, there was massive effery in Ohio. We didn't fight it, and I'm just saying, you're right. In 2016, the Obama administration knew what was happening, but they were like, Hillary's going to win, and blah, blah, blah. And, but I'm going, if ever we should have enacted, that would have been then. Because now, but you're right, we can't sleepwalk into this again, Glenn. As you tweeted, we will get to a better place together. Trump, Barr, Pompeo, McConnell are counting on our hopelessness to keep us docile. Let's disappoint them. Because as you also said, Barr's trying to burn down the Republic and enable Trump to preside indefinitely over the nation's ashes. Well, not if you and I and millions of patriots have anything to say about it, right?
Yeah, the people's firewall. It's going to happen. I still believe we're going to rise up. I think Congress is going to take the gloves off, and we're going to defeat this. I mean, so many dominoes need to fall exactly the right way for this Newsweek article to come true, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, because hashtag justice is coming, future Attorney General Glenn Kirschner, right?
I'll tell you, you put me in place, and I will try to fix this stuff up to and including with my dying breath.
I just see 4th of July fireworks when my eyes are just little. They're hearts and 4th of July fireworks when I talk to you. Okay. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Steph. Love you.
Love you too. Thanks for
Glenn.
coming to the rescue again.
Bye.
All right.